Hey everybody, this is Jason Heires. This is another Essential Album Review. I want to say this is either 41 or 42. I think it's 41. And I'm going to talk about an album by everybody's favorite albino blues guitar player. And if you don't know who that is, that's Johnny Winter. Now, this album was released in 1969. And it is Johnny Winter's second album. It's called Second Winter. Let me show you the cover. It's called Second Winter, but it's a little bit confusing because it isn't necessarily Johnny Winter's second album. When Johnny Winter got signed, he had several older recordings that he did that another record company snatched up and released an album. They released an album called Progressive Blues Experiments. And technically it was stuff that predates the first Johnny Winter album, which was just called Johnny Winter, and then the second album, which is Second Winter. So technically, even though this is called Second Winter, the quote-unquote Progressive Blues Experiment album was released before this one was. So it was Johnny Winter, Progressive Blues Experiments, and then this one. However, this is the official second album because he signed a contract with Columbia, and this was his second album that he recorded with Columbia. Alright, so we got that straight away. He's a blues guitar player, and he's from Texas. He is an albino, and he has a brother who, for years I thought he was a twin, but he's not. He's actually a younger brother who also is an albino named Edgar Winter. Edgar Winter is also pretty well known in rock and roll circles, especially for two classic rock staples, which is Free Ride, Come On and Take a Free Ride, and the instrumental Frankenstein, which I'm going to include a video of that with a live performance of Frankenstein, because Edgar Winter was a pretty diverse instrumentalist. He could play saxophone, he could play keyboard, he could play synthesizer, he could play drums. And this live performance on the Old Grey Whistle test, you get to really watch Edgar Winter jump through the hoops to get Frankenstein played. It's very entertaining to watch. I've seen it before, and I figure you guys should see it too. It's really impressive in a lot of ways. Now, Johnny Winter was the guitar player of the brothers and the singer, and he had a very long career. He released many albums, probably 20 or 30 albums over the course of his career. However, the albums that are mostly worth paying attention to are the ones that are recorded before 1980. So anything after 1980, they're not quite as good, or Johnny kind of becomes more of a traditional blues guy, and he uses a lot of songwriters and doesn't write his own material that much. So the albums kind of all fall into the same kind of basic blues pattern. And while he's a really good guitar player, and that doesn't change throughout his whole career, the songs are all kind of the same, and they get more and more cliche and less interesting as his career goes on, for the most part. I mean, there's good songs here and there. Johnny, in his earlier career, though, had more of a rock and roll influence and actually was a little bit more active in terms of writing his own songs. So that's why the earlier albums are better. The two best albums for Johnny Winter is either this album, Second Winter, or his very first album, which is just called Johnny Winter. One of those two albums is clearly his best album. I would actually recommend both albums pretty highly, and then I would go with like Still Alive and well as another pretty highly recommended Johnny Winter album. I believe there's also a couple like career spanning anthologies, and if you picked up one of those, you'd pick up a lot of his best stuff. One other thing I need to talk about briefly is Johnny Winter did team up with Rick Derringer. Now, Rick Derringer was with the McCoys, and McCoys were famous for, like Hang On Sloopy, which I think Rick Derringer wrote. And then another famous Rick Derringer song was Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo. And actually, there's a pretty good version of Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo that Johnny Winter does with Rick Derringer, which I actually think eclipses the original version. even though they always play the Derringer version when they play it on the radio. So that's kind of where we're at. And then there's also a live album that he does with Rick Derringer. And if you really want to hear a lot of crazy guitar noodling and solos and two guys that really go nuts with guitar solos, it's called Johnny Winter, or Live Johnny Winter and the band that was called at the time was Johnny Winter and, so it's a little bit confusing, but the album was called Live Johnny Winter and. There is a really cool cover version of the Rolling Stones song Jumpin' Jack Flash on there, which actually is really cool if you get a chance to listen to that. So that is something I would recommend that you check out too. Now, because Johnny wasn't and so the thing about this album though is this is a very solid album, and it does have a lot of covers on it, but some of the covers on here are really good. So, like, one of the covers is he does a cover of Slippin' and Sliding, which is Little Richard's song, Bless You, Little Richard, alright, rest in peace. You might have been a little overrated in my mind, but I'm not going to hold that against you. He also does a pretty solid cover of Johnny Be Good, but the outstanding track on this album, and one of the best covers you're going to hear, is he does a cover of Bob Dylan's Highway 61 Revisited. And this became a big staple for his live shows. This was one of his signature songs that he would perform. And he really takes it to the next level. It's not quite as stratospheric as Dylan's cover, or as Jimi Hendrix's cover of All Along the Watchtower, but it might be the second best cover of a Dylan song that exists out there, is this version of Highway 61. So I strongly recommend that you check that out. I'm going to put a link for a live performance up there so you can kind of see what it was like live. I actually saw Johnny Winter play this song live once in the 90s, and that was pretty damn awesome. It's still one of my career highlights for seeing something in live music. So, now, since Johnny Winter, on this album, there actually are a few Johnny Winter originals, and I think that's part of the reason why it's a little bit better. And there's a song called Hustle Down in Texas, which is a really groovy, muscular song. And then there's another strong album closer called Fast Life Writer. And so this album is a pretty solid album from top to bottom. There really isn't any song that's a real miss. And there's really good guitar work. Now, Johnny, throughout his whole career, was a fantastic guitar player. I saw him twice in the 90s, and he still was really good and technically proficient. I mean, you know, it's just the songwriting was kind of cliche. Like a lot of blues guys, they just, you know, Buddy Guy kind of has the same thing. Buddy Guy is Buddy Guy, and Buddy Guy is amazing to watch him play, but a lot of Buddy Guy's songs are pretty, you know, just standard blues trope kind of songs that aren't really interesting in terms of songs. And that's kind of what happens with Johnny Winter as well. Now, the thing about Johnny Winter, though, is that he had real problems with addiction throughout his career, with heroin and some other things. And I'm pretty sure that held him back quite a bit from being a bigger name than he was. And, you know, and so that was kind of a big thing that held him back. And but the thing about it is that towards the end of his career, they kind of cleaned him up a little bit. They produced like one last album called Step Back, which was actually, he died slightly before it was due to be released, but that album was kind of a pleasant surprise, and it was kind of a nice way for Johnny Winter to end his legacy as a musician. So he is an obvious legend as a guitar player. He is probably one of the lesser known blues guitar players. The Winter brothers kind of get made fun of a lot, but they actually were pretty talented musicians, and they actually do have a lot of good songs. So you could very easily put together a pretty nice set of songs between the two Winter brothers that would be a really good, solid rock and roll album that would be very enjoyable. So, I think that's going to wrap it up for today. I appreciate you guys watching these videos. Please subscribe if you haven't before. Thank you and have a great day. Goodbye.